Welcome to a new episode of the Meet the Guest Lecturer series. Today we have the pleasure of talking with Professor Conor O'Mahony. He's the Dean of the School of Law and the Director of Child Law Clinic at the University of Cork, at the University College of Cork in Ireland. He previously served as a special rapporteur on child protection to the Government of Ireland and has published various important articles on children's rights issues. And we're very lucky to have him here today. Thank you, Professor Conor, for being here today.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to visit friends in Leiden and to meet your students and PhD students and to hear about all the fantastic children's rights work that's happening here.
Your lecture here yesterday and as well as today explored state intervention and child protection measures. What do you see as the biggest challenge in this area of children's rights today?
Well, child protection is always a very challenging space because you are dealing with very difficult scenarios and very vulnerable children and young people. But you're doing that in a context where the interventions that are needed for them are often quite complex. They require a lot of detailed legal and policy frameworks and often a lot of resources. But that all exists in a context where child protection often isn't as high a political priority as it might be. So it can struggle to get the level of attention that it might ideally get in respect of enacting the appropriate legal frameworks, and especially in terms of resourcing those legal frameworks to make them operate effectively. So it's very common in a lot of systems that we see child protection services often are not sufficiently resourced to deal with the caseloads that they have. They often respond in a very reactive way. So where ideally the international law standards would say we want to try and work more on preventing issues arising rather than responding to them once they do arise. Because you have under-resourced systems, they very often are working in a more reactive way where they are just running after the most urgent cases and trying to respond to things that they see happening. I don't have the time and space to work on the more preventive aspect that might avoid some of the worst situations happening in the first place. So this is where I think international law has a very important role to play in bringing that pressure to bear on national governments to make child protection a bigger priority in circumstances where often the government's attention can be directed elsewhere.
And you have delivered this lecture as part of our program, I think, for quite a few years now. What perspective or experience do you bring to this topic and to the advanced LL.M and international children's rights?
So my background primarily is as an academic. So I'm a researcher who specializes in constitutional law and children's rights. So my academic perspective I bring to it is that combination of those two fields. It's reasonably unusual to have people who work across both of those spaces. There's quite a small number of people in the world who genuinely specialize in both constitutional rights and children's rights at the same time. Often people will work in just one of those two fields. So that intersection is I think a relatively unusual perspective. But then in addition to the academic side of things, you mentioned in your introduction that I served term as Special Rapporteur on Child Protection to the Government of Ireland. So in that role, I did a lot of work in dealing with the Irish government, analysing our child protection laws and policies, making recommendations for how those could be reformed and improved, both in terms of issues of current child protection concern, but also around responses to historical injustices and things like state inquiries and so on, responding to child protection failings in the past. So that gave me an interesting experience and perspective on the political reality of trying to achieve change on issues relating to child protection and the challenges that arise in that context. And the other thing that you mentioned was the Child Law Clinic, which I direct in University College Cork. And the Child Law Clinic is a vehicle that we use for our master students on our LL.M in children's rights and family law, provide research assistance to people working on children's rights issues, whether through litigation or whether as part of civil society groups who are advocating for law or policy reform. So that's allowed us to gain some very interesting experiences of working with legal practitioners who have litigated some very important children's rights cases at various levels of the Irish courts, including in the Irish Supreme Court and up to including the European Court of Human Rights. So that's been a very important way of building a bridge between the academic theory and the practice of law in this space, and an opportunity for us to both learn in our academic work from what's happening in the litigation space, but also then for litigators to benefit from the in-depth expertise that we have on some aspects of children's rights, and then using that to inform and improve the arguments that they present in court.
And finally, what is the final message you'd like to leave with our students?
Well, I'd say that this is an incredibly important area of work. For lawyers, I think you get a lot of people come into the legal profession, and they have so many different opportunities to go out into the world and to make a very good career, to earn a very good living, doing all sorts of work in different areas. Children's rights is maybe not one of the most common pursuits within the legal profession more broadly. And it might not be one which is as lucrative, perhaps, as working as a lawyer in some other areas. But you will not work in any area of law which is more important than children's rights. When you see, unfortunately, we live in a world where there are a lot of children who experience all sorts of different forms of very serious injustice, and that can have very difficult lifelong consequences for those people. So there's a huge amount of work to be done in children's rights. And it's not just a legal issue. It's a very interdisciplinary space where lots of different professions have important contributions to make. Lawyers certainly can't fix all of the problems of the world's children by themselves, but lawyers have a very important role to play in working not only through litigation, but also through the legal process, through law reform, advocacy work, and so on, to try and achieve better systems for children, not only in child protection, but across all issues of children's rights. And good work by lawyers has, in many instances, and some of the other guest lecturers in this course, people like Professor Anne Skelton, are fantastic examples of how lawyers can use their knowledge and the platform that they have to achieve fantastic outcomes for children and really to make children's lives better. So that would be my message, is that as a graduate of this program, you've received a fantastic education that will set you up to do that kind of work. And so to always hold on to the passion that brought you to the program now, to carry that through your career. And, you have an opportunity to really make a fantastic impact in the world.
Thank you so much. That's a really important message, I think, to take along. So thank you, Professor Conor, and overall for, of course, the lecture, but as well as for agreeing to do this interview. And thank you, everyone, for watching. See you next time in our Meet the Guest lecturer series. Thank you.